Well, I am here with the legend that is Colin Buchanan. Colin, welcome to Tamworth Country Music.
Oh, thank you so much, Sophie, and lovely to be with you, and lovely to be part of this whole event. And I've got so much to talk about. I always do.
Well, that's great because you can just do all the work. I'll just barely ask a question. But my first question, as I telegraphed before I started recording, is going to take me a while because I'm planning to list quite a few things that you have done. You have won 9 Golden Guitar Awards. You've had 4 RA nominations. You've won an APRA Award. You have released over 40 albums for children as well as for adults and been a presenter on Play School, a regular panelist on ABC Sydney's Thank God It's Friday. You're a songwriter who is with a lot of people. You've been working with Lee
Kernaghan, folks.
You've been working with Lee Kernaghan for over a quarter of a century. You've written children's books and you co-wrote Lee's memoir, and that is not all of it. Colin, when do you sleep?
What a good question. Well, look, you're right. And look, it reveals something about me that I clearly have a short attention span. And I really love to, I love fresh challenges. Mm-hmm. I mean, country music has really, country music's at the foundation of what I did. That the door opened to a creative life through living in Burke in 1988. Right. And writing songs about the bush, that was, and I didn't go there to write songs about the bush. That was really my journal, and all of these things have just the doors have opened, and I just love that fresh challenge. When I was a school teacher, I trained as a primary school teacher. A lot of primary school teachers, or just teachers in general, don't like interruptions. They want to get on with it, whereas I just loved interruptions. I love sports carnivals, library days, fire drills. It almost doesn't matter. The interruption was part of the fun. And rainy days, the whole thing. So I've just found that my career, diverse as it is, has just had so many fresh challenges that I've just loved that.
Well, you say you have a short attention span, but if that were true, you wouldn't be able to complete any of these things. So I think it's more what you've just said. You like diverse challenges.
No, aren't you kind? Well, that is true to some degree. I did say to a friend, I can't remember exactly how I put it, like I lack focus or something like that. And he said, well, for someone who says they do that, you seem to achieve a lot. So you're right. I think probably I like that next challenge. And I find too that if I'm working on a Lee Kernaghan album over a number of months, then if I go and work on a kids project, or I do some live performing, just that variety means the next time I come to songwriting, I'm just fresh again, the diversity does serve. It's a little like fallow fields, which is nice.
Well, it is a really good technique. And I imagine, it sounds very much like you are open to all ideas coming to you, so that whatever field you're working in at that point in time, you're not shutting off any avenue. You're not thinking, oh, I know this, I've done it. I'm just, I'm not prepared to have a fertile field as opposed to a fallow field. But do you feel that you are almost like a channel for ideas, that you just open yourself up and they come to you?
Well, actually, that's related. It's very interesting, isn't it, that sometimes our qualities, are also some of our faults, and I think I've trained myself to be distracted in my work, because a creative life it's not much of a creative life if you only see what's immediately obvious in front of you. The whole idea is to find fresh ideas and fresh inspiration. So I've trained myself to do that, which means I am very easily distracted. and when my wife sends me with 4 items on the shopping list, one of which is pick up the dry cleaning, and then thinking, it's been 2.5 hours. I wonder what happened to him. Although, we've been married over 35 years, so she knows exactly what happened to me. I got distracted, and I'm having a lovely chat to Manuel, the dry cleaner, who's showing me his chili plantation and where he prepares his food, how he salts his tripe. But Manuel has been in a song that was nominated for a golden guitar for the Bushwhackers. Yeah. So that's the other side of the coin, is like he found his way into a song, and that was because he told me his story, and story was fascinating to me, and it's not like I thought, well, now I'll write a song, but then Roger rang me and said, it'd be nice to do a song that just is about the cultures in Australia. I don't know what it could be, and it was like, I know where I'm going to start, and I won't tell the whole story because I'll go on forever, but it was a little moment in Manuel's dry cleaner when Anne, who escaped, was a Vietnamese refugee, stuck her head in and spoke to Manuel. That was the germ of the song. So, my distraction is an asset, and it drives my wife nuts sometimes.
Well, as you said, creativity is not about what is right in front of you, but that also implies that you have to go digging what's behind or underneath or to the side or whatever to find new story ideas, or open your ears and listen to someone who's telling you a story. Were you inquisitive as a child? Because it certainly suggests that an inquisitiveness that's part of your nature.
Yeah. I think I was. I mean, I sometimes wonder. As you get older, you think, how much of me is dad and how much is mum, and how much is where I grew up. Mum's always loved words, and she would write poems just for herself, and she's a wordsmith and a reader, whereas my father was a tinkerer and a great, a very ingenious. He's good at making do with things. So didn't have a lot, make something out of it. And I think, and very people person, just love being people and making friends with people and so forth. So it's really interesting. And of course, as a migrant, because I was born in Dublin in Ireland, and sometimes I wonder, is that part of what made me as I am? And I think the instinct to fit in as a migrant kid, even though I wasn't vast. I spoke the language, but I think I really didn't want to stand out, or at least wanted to stand out on my own terms, even as a little kid. So all those experiences make us who we are. So and certainly as a child, I think I loved getting a laugh as a child.
Right. But certainly what you've just said about your mother loving words and your father tinkering, well, that's a songwriter's lot, isn't it? So when did you first start tinkering with songwriting?
You do. And it's like he would just get offcuts. He'd bring home packing cases from work, spend ages pulling all the nails out of them. He worked at a paper mill, so big industrial equipment would come in packing cases. He'd chop it up and he'd just make all sorts of toys out of it. He'd make bunk beds and cubby houses and you name it. He made a trailer out of wood. We'd go around the hard rubbish collections on the street and pick up things. And, we just held a lot of the house together with bits that came out of old hi-fis and television sets and you name it, the house didn't look like a ramshackle, it wasn't chaos. It just had this sort of ingenious make-do-ness about it that was Dad's thing. So yeah, you're right. It is interesting how that resourcefulness, it does pay off. And sometimes people say, oh really, how did you come to write a song about that? And it's a bit, and I think, well, that was the bit of wood. That there was a problem maybe, or a challenge to write a song, or to just think you suddenly see a space, and then you think, oh, that meeting that person, that was my old television set by the side of the road that we turned into a bookcase.
Yeah. Well, and also that idea of your father making something from an idea, actually, like he had an idea of what he wanted to make and he created it, and making a song or a book is pretty much that. Like you start with an idea, it's not tangible, it could become anything at that point in time. You have to work out how to tinker it into life.
I've got a feeling that there's quite a bit of tinkering behind in your life, Sophie. Would that be correct?
There is a bit of tinkering, yes. I too am a book writer as well as a country music person, not performer. I have been in a band, but it was a covers band, and it was a very long time ago, Colin. So I cannot do any kind of artist. But this is not about me; it's about you. So
well, it's about us. It's yeah. No, I am interested, and just if I can just turn the tables on you.
You can try.
What is the where does your writing sort of land? What sort of realm?
Oh, if novels, it's commercial women's fiction is what it's known as. That's the genre. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Very
But I have also written some nonfiction as a ghostwriter, so I do understand the process you would have gone through with Lee to write his book, and it is that's a particular art form as well. I mean, it's not necessarily the same as writing a song.
Yeah, and do you write under your own name?
No, slightly different, but I'll keep that out. There's every chance I'm going to edit this out, Colin.
You're about to put on a fake moustache. So not actually reveal my true identity.
It's not a secret. It's not really a secret because my photo is in the books. But
all right, that's all right. I think we should keep it in because it shows a bit more about you as well. About both, really.
Well, that's true. That's true. We're having a conversation, but I do want this interview to be mainly about you because that's the reason for the interview. I could talk about myself anytime.
We've turned the time.
But I'm going to try to rein it in and direct this towards your new single, which is called In Real Life. Lovely single. It's your first song for the country music audience in about a decade. That does not mean that you have been away from country music or away from songs because, of course, you write not just with Lee, but other people. Your name is often mentioned by many other artists. So I know that you've been busy out there writing songs, but I'm wondering what prompted you to create this song for yourself?
Well, good question. And you've, answered part of the question by asking, by mentioning that my involvement in other artists' writing lives, that's been a lovely way to maintain my connection with country music. It's but I do like to say that the smallest font is reserved for the songwriters, and so you don't necessarily know that I've had a hand in songs, particularly just by hearing them. And but I've felt like, in fact, Rachel Whitchurch, who's a good friend and who did some fireside songwriting around the fire pit at my place during some of the lockdowns and so forth, had said, and who's always been a big fan of my music as well as being a friend, said, you really should keep record again. People want to sort of see you out there, and you've written all these songs with other people, but there's still an interest in what you have to say and do, so you should make a new record. And I've been accumulating songs over decades, because only a small number of the songs I've written have made it to my own albums. So I just felt like, okay, it's time. And this song, In Real Life, is by far the newest song on this collection of songs, which will be released later in the year. We've recorded it, and it is one of those songs that sprang from a simple little moment. Someone replied to an email to me, and signed off, be great to catch up IRL. And being an old guy, I had to think, what does that stand for? And I worked it out. You'll be happy to hear, In Real Life. And I thought it just got me reflecting on the value of physical presence, and how it's been unique. We've never really all had to learn the same lesson at the same time. And when I say all, it's virtually worldwide. We've been stopped from traveling. We've been stopped from having family gatherings, and musicians have been, we haven't been able to perform and be in gatherings of people, and all of that is very, it's a big change, and it made me realize how precious it is to share those things in real life. And so the song sort of sprang from that, and I wrote it after I came back from being in the Darling Downs, right, on a little run in between shutdowns. and just thought it's just so nice to be on the open road, to drive over the range, through Dalby, out there past Miles to a little town called Drillham, where we did a drought fundraiser sort of charity gig for Drought Angels, which was wonderful in its own right and for lots of reasons. And, and just to be reminded, this is what I do, and I love doing it, and I love being in a group of people like this and sharing music together. And so the song sort of is a celebration of what we've learned from missing out on those fundamental things that are important to us.
Yeah, I think you have a line in it that is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, love is more than a text or something similar to that. And when it comes up in the song, it's just so starkly presented. I was like, oh yeah, that's true. That's it. It's very clearly presented. And I think we might have told ourselves that text messages were a good substitute over the past 2 years, but they weren't.
Look, it's a little like, it is interesting how those, I don't tend to, that's, you could say, it's, if you haven't heard the song, you might think, oh, this song sounds a bit preachy, but I suppose by that point in the song, I've sort of opened my heart to the place of just freedom and being in the bush, and I've opened my heart to missing out on seeing the ones I love, missing out on saying goodbye, which many of us did during that time. So by the time you get to that point of the song, it's like this is never going to substitute for being together. It's what it does. It only does so far, and just to know that is really important. And I feel like we've allowed our technology to mediate our lives, and that's fine, but we need to can't let it go too far. Put the phone away, go and hug someone, go and talk to them. Be friends in real life. I think that's
go to their shows. I think that's part of it as well, like seeing an actual audience in real life.
Oh, yeah.
Or seeing a performer, like for an audience member to see a performer, which is my slightly indirect way of getting to the point of saying you have a show at the postponed Tamworth Country Music Festival.
Yes, which I'm quite excited about. It's going to be interesting to see what the April Tamworth Country Music Festival is like.
Cooler. It'll be cooler in weather-wise. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's so hot in January generally, but and although this year I reckon we might have had a wet year and a flood probably, but it will be wonderful to be together, and it feels like it's going to, there's a bit of collective breathing out, as it were, and relaxing of rules and so forth, and I'm looking forward enormously to not just performing my songs there as I am, but going to other friends' gigs and just being around a big group of people who love the music that I love.
And for you, going to Tamworth, I would imagine also involves watching other people perform songs you've written. So it'll be quite an interesting experience, like a full spectrum 360-degree experience for you. And I'm also thinking or wondering if when you're writing songs for you to record and perform, are the stakes different to when you're writing songs for other people? Do you actually even think of those songs that are for other people as different sorts of songs, or do they all have meaning for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, because I do I love writing with other people. I describe myself as a bit of a chicken, not a chicken, a kitten with a ball of wool. Not a chicken with a ball of wool. In that the challenge becomes the preoccupation, and I do enjoy that. In some ways, a blank sheet of paper can sometimes be a delicious challenge, but just one small idea can be enough for me to take off. And look, there's a young guy called Nathan May who I've been collaborating with, and he's from Adelaide or Darwin originally, and James Gillard, the wonderful bass player and singer and songwriter in his own right, who lives locally, has been mentoring Nathan. And so Nathan's been sending a few songs through. It's like, well, what do you think about this one? And and it's been really, he's been really open to me making suggestions with his songs, and James and I have worked with him together, and that's a real delight, you know, when he's able to say, oh, I can see that song's really improved, and at the same time we're trying to be respectful to say there's the essence of what got you to put pen on paper, to pick up your guitar, to say something, and that's the sacred part of this song. So we want that to live, you know. If we just want the story of this song, or the mood of this song to sort of have a flow, a slipstream, but we, you know, and that's a really great challenge, you know. It's like an overlay, on top of the, you know, the song itself is you know, who you're writing for, and I do really enjoy that, and you can sort of feel when a song does have that sort of slipstream to it. It has a momentum, has a feel and a mood, and sometimes it takes a while. You got to live with it and to and fro it and just see where it lands. Yeah.
I'm really interested in what sort of filing system you must have for, given that you've made 40 albums and you write a lot of songs for other people, so that who knows how many albums actually you've contributed to. So either a mental filing system or an actual like physical or on the computer filing system. I'm wondering what you do to keep track of all these songs.
Well, I'm grateful that I've got a publisher, and I've been with the same publisher for over 30 years now, which is Universal Music. So songs get not the songs that are you know, that it might be works in progress, but once a song is written, then it gets caught in the net, thankfully, of, you know, APRA who manage the public performance, and AMCOS who handle the recording of songs, collection of royalties and so forth. So I'm grateful that emails come through and they say, oh, this song is, we've noticed this is a new work that's been registered by another writer, or it's been released. And, you know, can you confirm that they're the proper details? Because it may not come as a surprise that my filing system is a little bit,
well, I'm sure there's some form of filing system there, because otherwise you would not be so productive. So even if it's just a loose mental filing system. But I'm also interested, we've talked a bit about creativity, but given your range of outputs across, you know, books, songs, presenting, all sorts of things, it seems you exist in a state of creative flow. And there are quite a lot of people who want to know how to start being creative, how to start even with one work. So I'm wondering if there are tips you're regularly asked to give for aspiring creators, and if so, what they are.
No. Well, I'm always a little nervous, actually, because there is a certain sort of, you know, sometimes people creatives will run workshops and they'll say, well, this is how it works. And I'm always a bit nervous about becoming one of those people, because I feel like you could probably build 60% of a, you know, if you did what they said, you might find that that's 60% useful. And that's, you know, and that's fine. I suppose people create for lots of different reasons, don't they? But that I've always thought of it as a gift and a craft, and you can teach the craft and you can learn the craft, you can hone the craft. You can't teach the gift. The gift is bestowed. The gift is sort of inherent. And I feel like both of those things come into play a lot. Sometimes when I'm collaborating, there's a lot of craft in just knowing that a song needs to take shape, and that the story, you know, is a bit ambiguous or it's not landing. You know, that's the craft. But the poetry of a song, I feel like that's where the gift comes into play, where, you know, you want it to be beautiful and maybe unexpected. And so in a way that's, you've got to be the first person sort of surprised and delighted by that. And then you stand a much better chance of surprising and delighting other people, and being intrigued or curious even about where this story goes. I've heard of authors who say they write to find out what's going to happen, you know, and not to say that's the only way to write, because I, you know, write stories. But I do feel there's got to be a certain level of self-gratification in it as well. And that doesn't mean that you have no eye for an audience. I'm certain that I get a lot of satisfaction from and fulfillment of the creative process from sharing my songs. There's no, and I always have, you know, if they just existed for me, I think I would feel that's incomplete. Some people, that's enough. They just say, I just do it for myself. But I feel like the audience is part of that final completion, and they bring wonder to it, because I know myself, you know, James Taylor doesn't know what mill worker, his song, means to me. He's never found out, and you know, and there's millions of people who would be in my shoes, you know, in relation to, say, that song. So it's really lovely when a song connects with an audience or with an individual, and their experiences and the place and time that they hear the song, just how they're feeling, the challenges, their worries, their joys, their relationships. They start to meld together, and suddenly there's this thing called them plus the song that you could never have planned for, other than creating a song that's got as much sticky stuff on it that'll just, you know, stick to people, capture their imaginations, tell a story well, and give them something out of that song. But I think in all that, I think I've successfully not answered the question.
Well, I think you have, because you talked about the gift and the craft. And I think as a central message, that's a strong one. And it also leads me to another question I had, because in that idea of the gift being bestowed, there's that sense of it not belonging to you. And in fact, not being so arrogant as to not do something with it, I think, is part of it. And I know that some of your output has been for a faith-based audience. And I do think that people of faith often have an understanding of how the gift can be something that they can use to be of service. For example, that acts of creation are also acts of service, that whole idea of a relationship with an audience. And I also think that faith can help to maintain motivation and also to manage doubt, because there's that sense of, well, I'm not just doing it for me. It's good to have a little bit of ego, because that makes me believe that I'm the right person to do this. But at the same time, I'm offering it to others, and I'm offering it up in a way. So I'm wondering if you find that with your work.
Yeah, they're all really good observations. And I mean, I would say I discovered that I could write songs. I discovered it as a kid walking around the back garden, but I didn't write any of them down. I just make up songs and found a bit of joy from that. And nobody really knew, and nobody, you know, didn't really have any effect on anyone other than I just did it instinctively. But I would say a key experience was being in a church, and then I found, I could write a song about, you know, a Bible story, or, you know, do it for kids. And suddenly the kids are singing along with the song, and it's sort of making sense. But that context was definitely one of service, that song is serving the message, and it's serving the people who are singing it. And, you know, the Bible has an expression, you are not your own. And I think, you know, that culture is a really great foundation for music. It sort of does, I mean, in a Christian context, you know, there's a deference to God, but there's also, as a reflex going into the music industry, it just doesn't finish with me. That is healthy. And there's plenty of people who aren't Christians who have that, you can get that sense of that, you know, there's a certain transcendence about creativity, you know, that there's something bigger going on here, and you are serving people. I've often used the term for songwriters, like really good songwriters, I say, or a good song, I say, oh, that song's pastoral. And again, it doesn't need to be a Christian song, it doesn't need to be sung by a Christian person, but songs that do business for us in terms of the living of life and the understanding of life and the celebration of life and the expression of doubt and fears and the resolution of some of those things and reflection on what's really important. So great songs will help us do that, and they do it through a story rather than just telling us what to think. They actually make us feel something, and that's a really precious thing. So I've loved being, articulating my faith in songs is something I've loved doing, and I've loved doing it for kids, and I like doing it for adults, and I like doing it for people who may not share my faith, but they can be a process of understanding or reflecting on the place of faith in their lives, or just how they might process their experiences. And I love writing a song about the One-Aring Road, or about places I've been and people I've met, and just observation songs that have their own level of, I don't know, when you put up a monument in music to something, it's got to make you think twice about what it is that the song's singing about, than just driving past it or through it, or walking past it.
Yeah. Now, I've had you talking for quite a long time, so I'll just ask one last question.
By the way, Sabby, it's been all me talking under cement.
I'm happy for you to do the talking. It's the point of the interview. But my one last question is about the fact that you have performed for children, written songs for children. You were a play school host. Who's a tougher audience, children or adults?
That's a good question. Adults tend to be more complicated and have a bit more baggage maybe, and children have no foibles if they're not interested. They just show it. But when they are interested and engaged, they're entirely given over to that, and that's quite delightful. So if you can capture an audience of kids, be it through recording or live, it does become a real wave. And also, to ride, a surge. And the other thing that kids do, like you could be in a auditorium full of accountants, and one child is sitting down the front, and you could say, you could be there to sing, one of your adult songs, and you say, "Oh, look, actually, I did notice there's someone here who is under 10. And what's your name?" "Oh, it's Stuart, is down the front." And so I'd like to do a song for Stuart, and then you sing, "I want my mummy, tell King Tut I want my mummy," or "It's raining at school today," or "Yucky mucky nappy," or whatever it might be. And suddenly the accountants forget that they're accountants, and they remember that they used to be kids, and they also rejoice in the joy of a child enjoying something simple and innocent and maybe a bit silly. And kids give a license to us as adults, which is really delightful. And they remind us that we were children and what it means to have been a child. And so I think I love it. I love performing for both, and they, like I said earlier, they both keep me fresh. There is something very special and sacred about performing for kids, I think.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. And it's been a real treat for me to talk to you, Colin. The song is called In Real Life. You will have an album out later this year. I'm sure there'll be the occasional single before then that we can look out for. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you so much for talking to me. And you can back up the truck, the wet cement now. We need something to shut Colin up.
See you later. Bye.
See you.
Bye.